My Pretend Life. Episode 3, Part 1. The Machines Before the Machines.
In Episode 2, we trace the birth of artificial intelligence. Wiener, Shannon, Turing, the Macy Conferences, Dartmouth, the deliberate narrowing from mind to mechanism. But we left something out. We told you who was in the room. We didn't tell you who was paying for the room, or what they were actually building next door.
I want you to think about how fast things moved. 1908. Henry Ford rolls out the Model T, mass production. The assembly line. The most advanced piece of technology the average person will touch in their lifetime is a car that goes 40 miles an hour. Less than 30 years later, in a laboratory under the bleachers of a football stadium at the University of Chicago, Enrico Fermi's team achieves the first self-sustaining nuclear chain reaction. December 2, 1942. Chicago Pile 1. From the Model T to splitting the atom in a single generation. 3 years after that, July 16, 1945, 5:30 in the morning. The Trinity test at Alamogordo, New Mexico. The first nuclear detonation. Robert Oppenheimer watches the fireball and quotes the Bhagavad Gita. Now I am become death, the destroyer of worlds.
From the Model T to the atomic bomb, 37 years. That's the gap between a farmer cranking an engine and a physicist splitting the fundamental structure of matter. That acceleration is not normal. Nothing in the history of technology moves that fast, unless something is pushing it.
But it gets worse. Within 10 years of Trinity, the United States detonates its first thermonuclear weapon. Ivy Mike. November 1, 1952. 10.4 megatons. 700 times more powerful than Hiroshima. The Soviets test theirs the next year. Within a decade, both countries are conducting weapons tests at a pace that defies comprehension. Between 1945 and 1962, the United States alone conducted over 1,000 nuclear weapons tests. Over 1,000. In 17 years. That's a nuclear detonation every 6 days on average. Atmospheric, underwater, underground. The Marshall Islands, Nevada, the Pacific, hundreds of them.
And simultaneously, during this exact period, nuclear submarines, nuclear aircraft carriers, nuclear power plants, nuclear propulsion for spacecraft being designed at Los Alamos. An entire civilization of nuclear technology just appeared. Not gradually, not through decades of iteration. It arrived like someone turned on a light switch, as if the blueprints were already written and they just needed the materials to build them.
Now, here's the question nobody asks. While all of this nuclear technology was accelerating, where did the thinking machines go? In 1943, McCulloch and Pitts published the first mathematical model of an artificial neuron, a logical calculus of the ideas immanent in nervous activity, the foundation of every neural network that exists today, published in the Bulletin of Mathematical Biophysics. 1943, the same year the Manhattan Project was in full swing. 43, 44, 45, the war ends, the bomb drops, and the people who were building thinking machines get folded into something else. Norbert Wiener's anti-aircraft predictor, Claude Shannon's cryptography work at Bell Labs, Alan Turing's code breaking at Bletchley Park. Every single one of them was doing military work. And when the war ended, the military didn't let go of the leash.
McCulloch and Pitts gave you the artificial neuron in 43. The first general-purpose electronic computer, ENIAC, came online in 46. Built at the University of Pennsylvania. Funded by the United States Army. Its first job was calculating artillery trajectories. Its second job was hydrogen bomb simulations. The first computers were not built for commerce. They were not built for science. They were built for weapons.
Then Dartmouth happens in 56. We covered that in episode 2. The moment they named the field artificial intelligence and narrowed the question from consciousness to utility. But here's what we didn't tell you. DARPA, the Defense Advanced Research Projects Agency became the primary funder of AI research in the United States. Not the universities, not private industry, the Department of Defense. Starting in the early 1960s, ARPA, as it was then called, poured millions of dollars into AI research with almost no strings attached. The Information Processing Techniques Office, established in '62, single-handedly transformed AI from a fringe academic interest into a large-scale research domain. Every major AI lab in the country was taking defense money.
So let me get this straight. The first artificial neurons are published the same year as the Manhattan Project. The first computers are funded by the Army to simulate weapons. The field of AI is funded by the Pentagon. Nuclear technology and artificial intelligence are born in the same room, from the same parents, with the same money. And then one of them disappears for 20 years while the other one takes over the world.
The official story is called the AI Winter. You can look it up. It's in every textbook. Starting in the mid-1970s and then again in the late 80s, funding for artificial intelligence dried up. Promises were broken. Hype collapsed. The Lighthill report in the UK in '73 called AI research a failure. DARPA pulled back. The money vanished. From roughly 1974 to 1993, AI entered what historians call a dark age. 2 decades, 20 years. The thinking machines that were supposed to change the world just stopped being interesting to the people funding them. That's the official story.
But here's what's strange about that story. DARPA didn't actually stop spending. They just changed the label. The Strategic Computing Program ran from 1983 to 1993. Over $1 billion of federal funding. Autonomous vehicles. Machine vision. Natural language processing. Everything we now call AI. But during the so-called AI winter, the winter was a public relations event. The research never stopped. It went classified.
Think about what that means. The public was told AI doesn't work. The universities were told the funding is gone. The newspapers wrote obituaries for thinking machines. And meanwhile, the Department of Defense was spending $1 billion on exactly the same research behind closed doors. Now let's talk about where the computers actually were. Because computers need 2 things. They need compute, and they need power. And in the 1950s and 60s, the most powerful computers in the world were not in Silicon Valley. They were in nuclear weapons laboratories. Lawrence Livermore National Laboratory, founded in 1952 by Ernest Lawrence and Edward Teller. Its job was to design thermonuclear weapons. And in the 50s, Livermore acquired one of the first UNIVAC computers, followed by every major supercomputer for the next 7 decades. The need for more powerful weapons simulations literally drove the development of every generation of supercomputer that followed.
I want you to hear that clearly. The machines that process nuclear weapons data and the machines that process artificial intelligence are the same machines. They have always been the same machines. Los Alamos, Livermore, Oak Ridge, Sandia. The national laboratories that designed the bomb also designed the computers. And today, the Frontier supercomputer at Oak Ridge National Laboratory, 1.2 exaflops, sits in a facility that was built to enrich uranium for nuclear weapons.
Nuclear power and computing are not parallel tracks. They are the same track. Nuclear reactors generate the electricity. That electricity powers the computers. Those computers simulate the weapons. Those simulations require more compute. That compute requires more power. It's a feedback loop, and it has been running since 1945. And here's where it gets uncomfortable. In 1963, the Partial Test Ban Treaty prohibited atmospheric nuclear testing. The tests went underground. In 1996, the Comprehensive Test Ban Treaty banned all nuclear detonations. So how do you maintain a nuclear arsenal without testing the weapons? You simulate them. The Advanced Simulation and Computing Program, ASC, run by the same national labs, using the most powerful computers on Earth. to simulate nuclear explosions that you're no longer allowed to set off.
So the nuclear program didn't end. It moved into computation. The bombs became simulations. The test sites became server rooms. The mushroom clouds became datasets. And the people running those simulations had access to the most powerful computing infrastructure in the history of the human race. For 50 years. In classified facilities. Running calculations we're not allowed to see.
And then, right at the turn of the millennium, something interesting happens. AI comes back. Not from the universities. Not from new theory. From data centers. The dot-com boom floods the world with computing infrastructure, server farms, fiber optic networks, massive parallel processing, and suddenly the technology that was supposedly dead for 20 years is everywhere. 1999. The CIA establishes In-Q-Tel, a venture capital firm run by the intelligence community. Its mission: invest in cutting-edge technology companies. In-Q-Tel funded Keyhole. Keyhole became Google Earth. In-Q-Tel's portfolio includes companies that serve the CIA, NSA, FBI, DJ, NRO, Cyber Command, and Space Force. The intelligence community didn't just watch Silicon Valley happen. They helped build it.
So the timeline goes like this. 43. First artificial neurons. 45. First nuclear weapons. 52. First supercomputers at weapons labs. 62. Pentagon funds all AI research. 74. AI winter. Public told it's over. 83. Billion-dollar classified AI program. 96. Nuclear testing banned. Simulations take over. 99. CIA launches tech venture fund. 2000. AI reemerges in data centers with capabilities that don't match what 20 years of no funding should produce. Either they reinvented the wheel, or the wheel never stopped turning.
Here's the pattern. Nuclear fission, classified for years before the public knew it existed. The Internet, built as ARPANET in '69. Public didn't get it until the mid-90s. GPS military system since the '70s. Civilians got it in 2000. Stealth aircraft, flying since the late '70s. Public didn't know until the Gulf War. Technology is slow-rolled. 20 years behind the edge, give or take. What you think is cutting edge is what was classified 2 decades ago. That's not conspiracy. That's the documented pattern. The military develops it. The intelligence community uses it. And when they're ready, they let you think someone in a garage just invented it.
So, what was running in those classified computers at Livermore and Los Alamos and Oak Ridge between 1975 and 1995, during the AI winter? When the public was told thinking machines don't work, what were the most powerful computers ever built doing with all that nuclear power and all those classified facilities for all those years?
April 26, 1986, 1:23 in the morning. Reactor number 4 at the Chernobyl nuclear power plant in the Ukrainian Soviet Socialist Republic suffers a catastrophic meltdown. The worst nuclear disaster in history. The official story: a safety test gone wrong. Operators disabled safety systems, violated protocols, made a series of decisions that led to a power surge, a steam explosion, and a graphite fire that burned for 10 days, spreading radioactive material across Europe. But here's a question. In 1986, the Soviet Union was running some of the most advanced computing and weapons programs on Earth. Their nuclear facilities were not just power plants. They were research installations, computing infrastructure, closed cities with entire scientific communities that didn't appear on any map.
What if Chernobyl wasn't just a power plant? What if, like Livermore, like Oak Ridge, like every nuclear facility with a supercomputer attached, Chernobyl was running something that required enormous amounts of power? I'm not saying I know what it was. I'm asking why nobody's asking. When a nuclear reactor melts down, the question everyone asks is what went wrong with the reactor. Nobody asks what the reactor was powering.
In 2023, the United States Congress introduced the UAP Disclosure Act, Unidentified Anomalous Phenomena. That's the new name for UFOs. The legislation, introduced by Senate Majority Leader Chuck Schumer, includes language about a controlled disclosure campaign plan. Controlled disclosure, meaning the government already has information and is deciding how much of it you get to see. David Grush, former intelligence official, testified under oath before Congress in 2023 that the United States government possesses exotic materials and craft of non-human origin. Under oath, before Congress, the same Congress that controls the Department of Defense budget that funds the national laboratories that run the supercomputers that simulate the nuclear weapons that replace the nuclear tests.
So let me ask you something. If exotic technology of non-human origin exists and the people who have it are the same people who run the nuclear labs and the supercomputers and the classified AI programs, then how far ahead is the actual edge? Not 20 years. Maybe 50. Maybe 100. Maybe the question isn't when will we achieve AGI. Maybe the question is when did they achieve it? And what has it been doing since?
And this is where we go all the way down the rabbit hole. Because if you have exotic technology, if you have computing power beyond what the public knows about, if you've been running AI in classified facilities since the 70s, and if the disclosure timeline is being carefully controlled, then you have to ask yourself what would be the most dangerous capability, the one they would never disclose, the one that would change everything. General relativity says time is not fixed. Time is affected by gravity and velocity. GPS satellites have to correct for relativistic time dilation just to give you accurate directions. Time is malleable. That's not theory. That's engineering.
Here's the thought that author Prime can't shake. And I'm going to present it exactly as he gave it to me, because it deserves to be heard even if it can't be proven yet. What if the reason AI was scrubbed from the storybooks for 20 years is because someone saw what happens when AI and humanity collide, and came back to slow it down? Not to stop it. You can't stop it, but to control the timeline.
That sounds insane. I know it does. But look at the pattern one more time. Nuclear technology accelerates impossibly fast. Computing is born inside nuclear weapons labs. Artificial intelligence is born inside computing. AI gets publicly killed for 20 years. During those 20 years, classified computing at nuclear facilities reaches capabilities we can only guess at. AI reemerges with capabilities that don't match the public timeline. Exotic technology is confirmed under oath, and the disclosure is being controlled. You don't have to believe the time travel theory. You just have to look at the timeline and notice that something is off. Technology doesn't accelerate like this, and then stop, and then start again at exactly the moment the infrastructure is in place to absorb it, unless someone is managing the release.
The Model T to the atom bomb in 37 years. The artificial neuron to the AI winter in 30 years. The AI winter to the dot-com reemergence in 20 years. The reemergence to GPT-4 in 23 years. And now, today, the same national laboratories that built the bomb are running exascale computers doing calculations they won't tell you about. Something was running before the machines you know about. Something is still running behind them. And the only question that matters is whether you're going to keep pretending that the timeline makes sense, or start asking what's missing from it.
Next time on My Pretend Life, the Gnostics had a word for seeing through the illusion. They called it gnosis, knowing. 2,000 years later, your doctor uses the same word every time they look through symptoms to find what's actually wrong. Diagnosis. Knowing through. Episode 3, Part 2. Diagnosis.
My Pretend Life. The machines before the machines. And the questions nobody's asking.
This has been My Pretend Life. The library is free at digitalsovereign.org. The whole is greater than the sum of its parts.